Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to this Monday morning with Business Coach Moloy. And we are on the theme of scaling. We have done 10 episodes. We have done 10 episodes. We will be looking at this is a 24 episode program that I'm running on Facebook. And today I'm going to talk about something very personal, very critical, something that affects a lot of entrepreneurs, and that is what I'm calling as the trust gap. This is the gap why founders struggle to let go, even when they know that they should not be holding on to things. So before I get into the depth of the conversation, I would like to ask you a question, not about your turnover, not about your profits, but a very basic question, very close to your heart. Take a piece of paper and write down that answer, fold it, keep it in your wallet, keep it in your purse, because this is the most important thing for you as an entrepreneur. Who do you completely trust inside your business? Take a moment. Don't think about loyalty or how long the person has been with you or their title. Think about the kind of trust where you can walk away for 3 weeks without checking your phone, where a difficult customer will still be looked after, where someone makes a decision and you don't immediately wonder, would I have done it differently? How many people come to your mind? One, two, maybe none. And even if the answer is none, write on that piece of paper, none, fold it, keep it in your business, keep it in your wallet, because that's what we're going to talk about. And if this question has made you uncomfortable today's conversation, and it's made all of us uncomfortable. And in whichever seminar, whichever workshop I've asked this question, I know there's a lot of discomfort. Let's talk about this. Over the multiple years that I've coached entrepreneurs across manufacturing, retail, tech, healthcare, family business, I've noticed something very common. Every entrepreneur reaches out at a stage where the world changes slightly, but the emotional never. He says, I need a stronger team. Nobody takes ownership. Everything comes back to me. Then 20 minutes into the real sentence, they lean back and almost embarrassed and they say, the truth is, Malay, I don't know whom I can trust in my organization. And beneath such every conversation about delegation, about founder dependency, there's almost one conversation about trust. And here's the reality: founders don't wake up one day and decide not to trust anyone. Trust erodes quietly. One broken promise, one expensive mistake, one confidential information repeated outside the room. None of this in isolation would destroy the trust, but together they leave scars. And every entrepreneur carries some, most of them invisible. I coached an engineering business sometime back, and 25 years into his business, sharp, respected, I asked him, if you had to leave India for a month tomorrow, who would run the business? And he looked at me and laughed and he said, no one. Because if I am not here, things will go wrong. And he then went quiet for a while, looked out of his window, and he told me about a senior manager he trusted completely 15 years earlier who had hidden critical information and cost the company a major customer. And he said, it took me 3 years to recover and I've never trusted anyone the same way ever since. One event 15 years earlier, still ruining his leadership today. Ask yourself how many of your current policies are really to just old disappointments wearing a process clothing. The payment approval that you insist on, the senior interview you must always sit in, the HR policy that you would want to change. A single event quietly becomes an organization rule, pain becomes a process, and we rarely notice it happening. Trust isn't purely emotional, it's one of the hardest commercial realities of building a scalable organization. Every day, founder decides who gets access to what information, who meets important customer, who negotiates pricing, who represents the company, and every one of them is a trust decision. And here's something worth sitting on. When you started out, you trusted yourself, selling, negotiating, borrowing money, everything with almost no experience. And that felt perfectly reasonable. Yet, years on, with a team that has grown alongside you, trust gets harder and not easier. Our trust in ourselves grew, our trust in others didn't grow at the same pace. And I like to put it this way, founders don't usually have trust issues, they have disappointment memories. A trust issue means you naturally distrust people. A disappointment memory means you have been hurt enough multiple times, again and again, by decisions that have been taken by the team members to grow cautious. Telling someone you trust your team more means like a switch. It isn't. It has to be rebuilt intentionally and patiently. I was having this conversation with a distribution entrepreneur, strong customer relationships, excellent reputation, and I asked him, why do all major customers still call you directly? And you know the answer? The answer was because they trust me. Do they trust only you, or they have never been given a reason to trust anybody else? And a long pause. And he said, I have never allowed that relationship with anybody else to develop. This wasn't a trust problem. This wasn't a disappointment problem. It was a habit problem. And this habit has become his culture. And here's the pattern that I see constantly. Founders say, my team doesn't take ownership, but when somebody does take a decision the founder wouldn't have made, we step in, correct it, sometimes take the work back completely, not to control, but because we believe we are protecting the business. And the message the other person receives, though, is, I trusted until my judgment differed from yours. That's not empowerment, that's supervised obedience. And people learn the safest strategy fast. Don't decide, ask. Would you trust your teenage child to drive across the country tomorrow? Probably not. Would you trust them to learn, sit beside them for a few times, and eventually let them take the steering? Of course, yes. And that's how trust grows. Gradually, with guidance, with increased responsibility, yet inside our business, we often expect trust to be absolute. Either I trust you completely or I don't trust you at all. Real leadership doesn't work that way. Trust isn't a binary issue, trust is a progressive issue. And here's the trap that many entrepreneurs struggle. Many founders wait until they feel completely comfortable before delegating something important. And that day never comes. Trust goes with responsibilities given, not before. Think about your own life. When did your confidence grow? It grew after either you jumped into the well not knowing how to swim and you knew that you had to swim, or somebody else trusted you. Also, look back to the day when you started your business. You had new product, you had a new service. Your first 5 customers completely trusted you with your product or your service. They knew nothing about you as an entrepreneur. Maybe they knew you about a business, knew you about a person, but they knew nothing about you as that entrepreneur. And if you really look back, the first 5% are people who didn't know you. I have come to believe that trust rests on 3 pillars. When one is missing, trust wobbles. And the first of them is character. Can I trust this person's intention even when nobody is watching? Second, competence. Can they actually do the job not because they're loyal, but because they have the skill and the judgment it requires? And the third for me is the most important element, consistency. Can they deliver reliably again and again? They may make mistakes. I'm not looking for perfection out here. I'm looking at consistency. Businesses doesn't reward occasional brilliance. It rewards dependable performance. And all those individuals and all those entrepreneurs who have succeeded in life have never been because of the occasional brilliance, but because of consistency. Take it business, take it sports. And I give this very, very common example of a Sachin Tendulkar and a Vinod Kamli. Probably Kamli was more talented, but it was the case